Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Losses Above Replacement, the greatest baseball podcast, Two Great Series. I'm today's host, Mathias Altman-Kurosaki, and with me, we only have one co-host today. I have Alex Clark here. First thing,
yeah, I guess Splash quit. No.
Splash is absent today. He had to go into work tonight. But anyways, Alex, we are recording on a Sunday evening. The regular season for everyone except for Splash's Braves and my Mets is over. So tell me, how are you doing on this fine Sunday evening?
Well, first, I do want to say one thing really quick. Splash is not absent due to anything bad with it. It is this is going to be a two-parter podcast here. We're going to be talking about AL stuff in this one, and the next one it's going to be just Mac and Splash talking about National League stuff here. So, for those of you wondering, no, there's nothing wrong with Splash here.
Splash is still with us, obviously.
Exactly.
We'll hear from him tomorrow.
Exactly. But honestly, today has been so weird for me. I have felt so melancholic today overall. I went to both of the last two Mariners and A's games, and that's why I'm wearing the A's hat today. Kind of as it was weird. I felt myself having a really hard time rooting for Seattle in this game. Like, I understand, I'm a fan. Obviously, I want Seattle to win, but silently, I really wanted the A's to win their final game as the Oakland Athletics instead of the Sacramento A's or the Las Vegas Rollers or whatever is going to happen. And it still feels like a fever dream that all of this is happening. Yeah, but I always get kind of somber at the end of the season just because it's the end of a campaign here, and unlike your Braves and Mets overall, your Mets and Splash's Braves, I don't have postseason to worry about for tomorrow. Here, I have just watching the other teams in the playoffs here and kind of having my own little hometown roots fours, which we'll probably talk about actually on the next podcast because the National League side is still being determined at the time of this recording.
Yeah, and also I get what you're saying about the A's. Back in 2004, the Montreal Expos played their last ever game at Shea Stadium. And that was definitely, I know, kind of a weird ending to the season too. Again, the Mets weren't going to the playoffs, neither were the Expos, but the Expos were going to be playing their last ever game as the Expos. I know that their Brad Wilkerson, I guess he was a first baseman by that point, is known as the last Expo because he went on a Major League Baseball All-Star tour to Japan, so he was the last player to wear an Expos jersey. And I am thinking about A's fans. I know it's a tough time for them, but I'm curious to see where it goes from here, man.
I gotta give credit to the A's fans, man. Like, they have gone through so much just in the last couple of years with all of this. And to give you more credit, today at today's ball game, they came out in droves for the final one, and the Let's Go Oakland. What's funny is I never heard Let's Go Athletics. All I ever heard was Let's Go Oakland.
That's Let's Go Oakland, yep.
And I'm like, yep, 100%. I saw a bunch of the cell flags everywhere, including right behind home plate. So it was definitely a time. But I look through all of this, it shows how powerful that fan base really is and how much John Fisher is going to be missing out on too.
Yeah, and I know that A's fans are everywhere. Actually, it's interesting because for a while it felt like most people I've met from that area were Giants fans, but I actually came to know a decent amount of A's fans. They are a very passionate fan base, and I mean, I feel for them. They're teams moving.
Yep, exactly.
So but I noticed though that at basically every road game this year there were A's fans. I mean, they made sure to see their team one last time representing Oakland. So
there's a lot of A's fans and a lot of people supporting the A's, which is a difference here on this. And to be fair, that's kind of what I did today. I wore my what I like to call my ceremonial jersey here, my Griffey one that has all my patches on it from all these events I've gone to, as well as I wore an A's cap to a Mariner game. I had to do respect for both sides on this one. It just felt right.
I will say I do have an Oakland A's t-shirt from when they made the postseason about a decade ago, but I have long since outgrown it. That's
it's been a minute.
kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, I got it when I was 13, probably. So, anyways, as Alex said earlier, we are talking about the American League postseason picture today. Disclaimer that, like we said earlier, Splash and I will be on talking about the National League after the Mets and Braves doubleheader concludes. For those of you who don't know, the Mets and Braves split the doubleheader. They both get in. If one of the teams sweeps, the loser gets eliminated, and the Diamondbacks will make it in. So that's that. So let's jump into the American League. And by the way, one other thing is that we are recording this on a Sunday night. First of all, thank you all for tuning in this regular season. Second of all, with Alex starting a full-time job tomorrow, we are going to be having a slightly different schedule as to be determined. But I will say right now, don't necessarily expect us every Monday. It may be a different day of the week.
Yeah. I'll tell you this right now, I'm really excited to be starting a new job. I can't talk about too much with it, but more likely, I think for what we're talking about, like we'll give more exact details later on here, but we're looking at potentially Wednesday as a different recording dates. But it's gonna be later on in the week because of different job schedules and all that.
Yeah.
Because hey guys, spoiler warning, scheduling is hard when you have people that work.
Yeah, different times of day too. It's
exactly, yeah. Because I'm gonna be doing basically an 8 to 4 type job, so it's like, all right, cool. Well, basically eliminates any time that we would record like during the afternoons now.
Yeah, exactly. So just a heads up there if you're wondering why. Oh, it's not up at Tuesday at 8 a.m. That's why. But anyway, let's jump into the postseason picture. Let's start out in the first wild card matchup, the 3 seed against the 6 seed, the Houston Astros facing off against a surprising team that I don't know if any of us had making the playoffs, the Detroit Tigers. So
I mean, Splash had them winning the World Series, 2 years ago?
No, he had them winning the Central 2 years ago. But maybe he was, maybe he saw the future here. The Tigers were 8 games under 500. They make the postseason. AJ Hinch facing off against his former team. So, Alex, you go first. I know you have plenty of thoughts on the Astros. So, the Astros and Tigers, who do you have?
So, I'm going to sound like my broken record here. I'm not picking the Astros in this, and I know that's blasphemous considering the fact of I'm pretty sure you, or at least Splash, but more than likely also you have them at least getting to the ALCS here. Here's what I have to say, though. The Detroit Tigers have done something truly miraculous over the last several months. Go back to, let's say here, I'm going to use Seattle for this as well as an example. In July, right, beginning of July, Seattle had the postseason chance at around 60+%, which is astronomically high. The Mariners missed out on the playoffs again by 1 game. Sad times. I'll talk about that later. The Detroit Tigers at that exact point they had a 0.2% chance of winning. To kind of give that an idea, right? That's a 1 in 500 chance of making the postseason. And look at where we are right now. The Mariners missed the postseason and the Tigers are in. And would you like to know why? It's because the Tigers have been playing incredible baseball over the last several months. They have gone on a torrid pace to take everything that has been working well for them and to give themselves the 6th seed on it. And right now, they are the Cinderella story of this playoff bracket, if you ask me. So, overall, right now, I'm taking the Tigers for one reason and one reason only. Momentum. They have the momentum. The Astros, I'm not going to say they haven't. They've been okay over the last little bit here, but they lost a series in home to Seattle. And at that point, like, okay, well, what else can you really do? Like, Seattle was playing also red hot at the time. But you're going up against a team right now that, yes, you're going to have home field advantage for, but the Tigers have the momentum advantage. They are one of the hottest teams in all of baseball, and they're getting hot at exactly the right time and have been keeping it up at that point as well. Call me, a hater, all that kind of stuff. Feel free. but I'm going with Detroit in this. I think it's going to be very hard to beat them in the postseason, especially in the fact that you're going to have a wild card game where first game more than likely is going to be Tariq Skubal on the mound for Detroit here. And let's just see. What did he just do? How good is he? Well, he's going to win the Cy Young here, and he just won the Triple Crown. That's, to quote John Boyce, pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so the Tigers, first of all, I want to give them a ton of credit for what they did this year. All right. They got hot after they traded Jack Flaherty, who was one of the best starters in baseball at the time. I mean, if you told me after that the Tigers would make the playoffs, I would have thought you were crazy. Honestly, that was when I thought, this is it for the Tigers. They got off to a hot start, then got really cold. Like I said, they were 8 games under 500. And now here they are. They finished 10 over, and they are going to the playoffs. And I really do like Tariq Skubal for them going in game 1. My issue with that my issue with the rest of the series, though, is that they don't have a true number 2 guy that I think they can rely on. Whereas with the Astros, they're probably going to go with Framber Valdez in game 1. But in game 2, you can probably go to Ronel Blanco or Hunter Brown or Spencer Arrighetti or heck, Yusei Kikuchi. And I think that those pitching matchups favor them. And also Houston's overall offense, I think, is much better than Detroit's. Yeah. Detroit has some solid players like Riley Green and Colt Keith. Spencer Torkelson has been much better since getting called back up in the minors. Parker Meadows too. But I think I have to give Houston the edge just because I think they have a little more depth. So I'm going with Houston in 3. I think Detroit takes game 1. I know that 3-game series in this new wildcard round are incredibly rare. There's only been one, the Mets and the Padres in 2022. So I have Houston in 3. Going over to Splash's prediction, he has Houston in 2. So
here's what I'll say one last thing, right? And this is, again, one more kind of mini argument for the Tigers here. I think this is the worst case scenario right now for Houston because the Tigers right now, game 1, are throwing the best arm in baseball, right? And if this was a first to 3 wins series, the best 3 of 5, I think Detroit gets cooked. I really do. But the fact that it's best 2 out of 3 makes it really weird for the Astros because you have game 1, which with throwing Skubal out first gives you a huge advantage, even on the road here. So now at that point, it's like, okay, and if you get that first game win, you really put the pressure on Houston. And all that needs to happen is just one thing goes in Detroit's way. Detroit's favor. And now you have the Houston Astros being eliminated in the wild card round. I'm not going to say that it's going to be a 3-game set. In fact, if it goes to 3, I think Houston wins it. I think Detroit's winning this in 2 because, like you said, I think Skubal's going to go up against Framber Valdez. I'm not on the train of a lot of people that think that the Astros have a great pitching staff. Ronel Blanco is good, but he's had his issues as well. Spencer Arrighetti, I don't know how much I trust him, especially as a rookie this year. I think, honestly, I probably would throw Kikuchi in that segment with how dominant he has been over the last second half, which I will happily eat my words here saying that he wasn't going to do as well. But I think that right now, this is the ideal situation for Detroit here to potentially cause the upset of the playoffs.
I will say that in a 3-game series, the Tigers are a heck of a lot better than they are in a 5-game or 7-game series. But, I actually thought they matched up better with Baltimore. So, they were talking about this today on the SNY telecast because the Royals and Tigers were still fighting for seeding at the time. And, I think you'd rather face the Orioles than the Astros. And, Detroit gets matched up with Houston, who I understand that their pitching staff isn't perfect, but I think given the way the playoffs work, they probably move Arrighetti to the bullpen. Justin Verlander, I have no clue if Justin Verlander will be on the postseason roster. Really a real disappointment this year.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you said that at the beginning of the year, I think people would call you crazy too.
Yeah, it's beyond just he had 2 IL stints this year. He really just wasn't himself this year, and he's 41 now. I don't know what's going to happen with Justin Verlander going forward, but I think Houston has enough depth where especially if this goes to a 3-game series, like you said, I think Houston has an upper hand.
Yeah,
so 100%. Houston winning in 3, they will move on to the next series, which will be against Cleveland.
Yep. I do want to say one thing on what you just said, though, that they match up out of Baltimore. I think I agree with that, but I think that this, like I said earlier, this is the worst case scenario for Houston. Just because, again, in the 3-game set, there's so much luck that plays into it. You need to win just 2 games. Like, no matter what, you are only seeing 3 starters at the very most. So, do you trust the 2 games, like 2 of the starters for Detroit over 3, it was like for Houston? Here's when you have Skubal as the number 1. That's where my logic is coming. It isn't just saying, yes, I'm a Mariner fan, I don't like the Astros. It is, I legitimately am looking at this and seeing that the wild card round is where anything can happen. You can get that huge buff here, especially taking a look at Houston hasn't needed really to play through the wild card round very much over the last few years. They just have been in the ALDS and move forward. You put them in a best 2 or 3, we'll see how well they respond, even if it is in Houston.
Yeah, so I am really curious, though, to see how AJ Hinch's team does against his old team, because he probably knows that team, that clubhouse, better than anyone. So, I mean, he only had them for half a decade or so. But let's move on to the other wild card series, which is the Royals and the Orioles, which will be played at Camden Yards in Baltimore. I'll go first here. Like I said earlier, I think this is the team you want to face rather than Houston, but Baltimore looked like they were starting to round into form this week. And I think Kansas City has a very good starting rotation. My concern with the Royals is that bullpen. Their best arms looked like they were starting to tire a bit. And really, I have a hard time picking who I trust the most here. Probably Lucas Erceg, but it's been kind of rocky lately for
I was about to say, it's been on and off, yeah.
So, I look at Baltimore and their offense. I think it's significantly better than Kansas City's. Kansas City, you're basically relying on Bobby Jr. and Salvador Perez. And we don't even know if Vinny Pasquantino is going to be back this series. I mean, it said maybe he's back, but I have to go with Baltimore here. I think maybe maybe the Royals steal one of the games that Cole Reagans or Seth Lugo starts, but Baltimore, I think their home field advantage is really strong. By the way, Orioles fans do show out, and they are a very, very passionate fan base. So I think that's one home field advantage that definitely works for them. I think home field advantage in baseball compared to the other sports maybe isn't as important, but it's still kind of important. So I'm going with the Orioles in 3.
So I'm actually going to completely disagree with your last point there, talking about home field advantage. I think it's worth even more in baseball than it is in any other sports because of 2 reasons. And it's this is a very logical, straightforward reasoning. Baseball is one of the only major sports where the field dimensions aren't uniform.
Well, you're correct.
Yeah. So at that point, it's like, okay, well, you're now getting to play at a stadium that you have played and you know how it works a lot better than any other team does. There's a reason why a lot of Seattle's wins came at home this year for that same kind of idea. But I am going to echo your statement, though, about how Baltimore is going to win this. I agree. I think Baltimore wins this in, I'm going to say 3, but I think it could very easily be 2. I just think, kind of like what you said, the power has been really surging for the Orioles. I mean, you take a look at that starting lineup, and it's just, man, there really isn't much of a hole there, is there? Like, they have been playing very good baseball, and it has been really fun to watch what they've done. Really, the only thing I worry about when it comes to Baltimore is the same thing that I worry about when it comes to the Royals, and that's the bullpen. So it's like, okay, well, how well can you outscore your opponents very early on? Like, obviously, I'm not going to do the Joe Buck thing of whoever scores more points wins the game. Like,
Oh, really?
Dude, it's wild. I know, right?
News to me,
But
man.
dang, yeah, baseball's weird. Baseball's fun, but no. At the same point, though, like I think that the Orioles having the home field advantage is going to be very strong for them. I think the Royals have played great baseball this year. They're another one of the Cinderella stories, but I think the Orioles have this one overall, just because I trust their starting 1-2 a lot more than I do for the Royals, and the bullpen for the Royals doesn't inspire too much hope past that.
And I will say, I think of the Royal starters, I trust Reagan's the most. I think he is the best stuff on the staff.
I agree.
I really like Seth Lugo, and I'm so happy to see him succeed this year. But my one concern with him is that he did throw 206 innings this year, and this is his first full season as a starter. So at what point does that wear and tear catch up to him?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know,
so here's a
tough.
question. Here's a question then for you. Who do you throw in game one? Is it Reagan's or Lugo?
They already announced that Reagan's is going to go in game one to tease on full rest. So Reagan's is a fantastic pitcher, and really the Royals starting rotation was really, really good. I mean, there's a case that this year they were the second best behind Seattle's, which is, if you told me that before the season, that the combination of Reagan's, Lugo, Waka, Singer, and Marsh were going to be like one of the best starting fives, I would have just been like, I don't know where you're getting that data from. Seth Lugo had been a starter last year, but he never really, I watched him with the Mets when he tried being a starter. He would struggle really badly. His stuff just did not look the same. I thought he'd forever be a reliever, maybe turn into a closer, but he's definitely proved me wrong. Good for you, Seth. For a guy who was only a 34th round pick out of a junior college, he's made a ton of strides. So
made a heck of a career.
He'll probably be a finalist for the Cy Young. He won't win because of Tarek Skubal, but anyway,
he'll get good votes though.
Yeah, Splash also has the Orioles winning in 3 games. So let's move on to the ALDS. So for me, that is Baltimore against the Yankees and the Astros against the Guardians. For you, Alex, I believe that is also Baltimore and New York, the Tigers and the Guardians. So two sets of division rivals facing off. Let's start out with the lower seeded, I guess we call it. So the Houston versus the AL Central matchup. So or the 3-6 game versus the 2 seed. So who do you have emerging victorious of the Tigers and Guardians?
So first off, they're going to start out by shaking hands over home plates here in I don't know how we got here, but here we are.
Yeah.
Just like the plankton. I don't know. I didn't think I'd get either team
making it.
Yeah, exactly. And now here they are in the ALDS. No, I think that this one, I'm going to go with Cleveland here. I think that both teams are going to be fun, but like we were saying earlier, Detroit doesn't match up near as well in a series that is longer than 3 games. Like, just because, especially when you can match them up against the starting pitchers for Cleveland. But really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is that when you get later in the game, I trust the Guardians more than I trust the Tigers because of a few names. J-Ram is one of the most clutch players in baseball, and Emmanuel Clase is arguably the best closer in baseball. So at that point, it's like when you get later in the game, and if Cleveland even has a lead at that point, you just got to be saying, you've got to be hoping for a prayer at that point. So for me on that one, as much as I buy the momentum here for Detroit, I think having to go for best 3 of 5 instead of 2 out of 3 is going to be what sells them. I'm going to pick for this one that it's going to be the Guardians in 4.
Yeah, and I like I said earlier, I have the same concerns about Detroit because you can't pitch Tarek Skubal every single game. So it's like, do you go to Reese Olson? Say you advance. Who's starting game 1? Reese Olson, Casey Mize. These are not guys who go super deep into games. Then you have to and look, Detroit's bullpen has been fantastic lately, especially I mean, I want to give props to Jason Foley. I tweeted this the other day, but it feels like he did not get enough love during this surge. I mean, he had the worst month of his worst month of the season. He had a 9 ERA in July, but he has had about a 1.5 since, 13 for 14 in save opportunities. So big shout outs to him. You know, Tyler Holton, you know, he's been one of the best relievers in baseball over the last 2 years, and it feels like almost nobody talks about him. So really, Detroit has a great bullpen, and so does Cleveland. But you know, I will say I have similar concerns with Cleveland. Cleveland, you know, you're going. I'm assuming Tanner Bybee in game 1. Who's going game 2? Are you going with Ben Lively in game 2? You know, who's starting game 3 then? You know, you DFA Carlos Carrasco. He's not on the team anymore. Tristan McKenzie spent basically all year in the minors. Gavin Williams did not live up to his hype this year. You know, they have a fantastic bullpen. Do not get me wrong. They had arguably the best bullpen in baseball. Emmanuel Clase was the best reliever in baseball this year. Cade Smith was probably the best setup man. He might get Rookie of the Year votes this year. I mean, his rookie year, 74 games, 1.91 ERA, 103 strikeouts in 75 innings as a rookie.
I was about to say 103 strikeouts as a rookie is insane.
And Hunter Gaddis was also great. Tim Herrin was great. Nick Sandlin had 3.70 ERA, but 8-0 out of the bullpen. I know wins and losses don't mean anything, but 8-0 out of the bullpen is really impressive. That being said, 100%. It's about, can you get 12 outs even? I really do not trust this starting rotation. And their offense, Jose Ramirez was great. He nearly had a 40-40 season. Josh Naylor hits for a ton of power. You know, David Fry, yes, he cooled off, but he's still a solid offensive threat. Same with Stephen Kwan. But I just think that this starting rotation is really flaky. And he's matched up against a team like Houston that has a lot of depth. I just don't see them advancing past this. So I have to give Houston the upper hand here. I have Houston winning in 4. Splash also has the Astros winning in 4. It's
one thing I will say, one thing I do want to say is that if Houston does get past Detroit in the wild card series, I do take Houston over the Guardians for the kind of purpose that we've been talking about here, that they just match up a little bit better against the Guardians here because of their deeper rotation and the fact that their bullpen is pretty strong overall here. Again, that's something that it's going to be weird coming from me saying this. Their bullpen is really unsung, I think. They have some really good arms in there. And also just how good Ryan Presley has been over the last how many years now at this point? And yet we never hear about this guy should be one of the best premier relievers in baseball. I'm like, why don't we hear that? He has been absolutely excellent for what feels like his entire career at this point. But
I mean, I will say that Josh Hader has not been Josh Hader necessarily this year, but
I agree.
Still, considering how awful he started, he had a 6.39 ERA at the end of April, and it was still, over 6 on May 5th. But since then, I mean, he's been slightly more Josh Hader-like. Yes, he's given up a lot of homers, but over that stretch, like I said, a 3.2 ERA, 81 strikeouts in 56 innings, he still gets a ton of strikeouts. His one issue is he gives up more home runs now, So
yeah, and that's one thing that, especially in Minute Maid, you're gonna have to. Is it Minute Maid for the Astros?
Yeah, it's Minute Maid.
Yeah, I was about to say, for some reason, I don't know why. For some reason, I thought that was the Rays. No, it's Tropicana.
Tropicana, 2 juice names,
Orange juice, guys. It's the
orange juice,
I do want to see that series though, so it's just the orange juice bowl.
The orange bowl, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's what I'll say. I'll just overall say that if it is Houston versus Cleveland, I'm going with Houston. But if it's Detroit versus Cleveland, I'm going Cleveland.
And, it's like I said, Cleveland they've defied the odds here. Honestly, it's going to be interesting. Does Steven Vogt get Manager of the Year? Does AJ Hinch
he 100% deserves
a lot of votes for Manager of the Year. I would throw Joe Espada in there too, because Houston was 7-19 at one point. So anyway, let's move on to the other ALDS matchup, which we all have Baltimore against the Yankees. And I'll go first here. I understand Baltimore showed its cracks throughout the year, especially the last couple months, but the one thing they were good at this year is they were great against their own division, especially the teams that were above 500. And for that reason, surprisingly, I have the Orioles upsetting the Yankees. And this is not to say the Yankees are a bad team. I think the Yankees are a great team. They're incredibly talented. I will say they have a pretty high ceiling, but they also have a pretty low floor looking at their roster. Aaron Judge, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Aaron Judge. He finished with a slugging percentage over 700, something not done since Barry Bonds. You know, in case anyone forgot, Barry Bonds was pretty good at baseball. Juan
He's
Soto,
pretty good at a few things too. That helped him, yes, to be good at baseball, but
exactly, just got eat a balanced breakfast and all that.
Yeah, you just say balanced breakfast, and just like we were talking about just a minute ago, had a lot of juice.
Exactly, so I mean the Yankees are a good overall team, I think, but the Orioles won the season series with them, and they just saw them this week. I think the Orioles match up pretty well with them. I think their pitching staff is pretty evenly matched. Yes, the Yankees have the two superstars on their roster in Judge and Soto. Both are probably going to be in the top 3 in American League MVP voting. But I think Baltimore, you throw Gunnar Henderson in there. Ramon Arias, I feel like almost flew under the radar. And I don't even know if he's going to start with Jordan Westburg there. He's also really good. Adley Rutschman had a down year, but he was still an above-average hitter. Ryan Mountcastle had a pretty solid season. Colton Cowser seems to be heating up right when the team needs them. And heck, Anthony Santander cracked 44 homers this year. So I really like the makeup of this lineup, and I think they can take advantage of playing 3 of the 5 games in the Bronx. So I actually have Baltimore winning this series, and I think I'll give Baltimore in 5. So I think it's going to be a very close series, and honestly, this could be one of the best matchups we see this postseason.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be like the premier matchup before you get to the World Series. Like, don't get me wrong on the other side of the bracket, but looking at these are Titans going at. There's no other way to say it. These are Titans going at it. With that being said, I'm giving this to the Yankees. And here's my reason. Like, yes, the Orioles have won the season series, all that. The Yankees have been in the playoffs a lot more. They understand how the playoffs work a lot more. And we have seen what happens when it comes time to trust Aaron Judge in the postseason. He dominates. He delivers. And that's what I think it's going to really come down to. Like, I understand that, the Yankees kind of are a very top-loaded lineup overall. But here's the thing, because normally I'm very against that. But when you look at the 2 people that are top-loading that lineup, it feels a lot more like, you know what? I get it now. I see what you're talking about. Because they are so unbelievably good. The fact that we have right now another Barry Bonds playing baseball right now, and you have arguably the best bat-to-ball guy in recent memory here with Juan Soto here, plus the additions of Jazz Chisholm to add on more into that. Austin Wells has even been doing well. All you really need is some decent starting pitching and decent relief help, because I feel like overall the entirety of this series is going to be how long can the Orioles hold the Yankees stagnant. If they can hold them, then good, great. This feels more like a matter of when rather than if, unfortunately, because that's one of the things I've seen when Seattle plays the Yankees, when Boston plays the Yankees, when any team plays the Yankees. You worry about Judge and Soto. Those 2 together. It's weird because baseball is a team sport. Yes, you have 26 men on the roster. But when you have those 2 at the top of your lineup, that generates runs. If you need some production from everywhere else, right? But those are 2 of the only guys in all of baseball that you can full on say, yeah, they are going to produce. Not are they going to produce. They are going. It's just a matter of when. For this one, I'm going to Yankees overall for it. I'm going to say that it's going to be in 5 here, purely because I think that over the course of the series itself, it's going to come down to how well can the Orioles at least manage. This is going to be one where I think overall Baltimore's going to have to really micromanage a good bit, because that's what I think what you need in the playoffs to take on a team like the Yankees. You have to be in control of every little bit. You can't just play off the vibe. Playing off the vibe is how Aaron Judge has broken a home run record. Playing off the vibe is why Juan Soto, at 25 years of age, is one of the best hitters in baseball, because you give them chances and they deliver.
Yeah, I will say, so by the way, Splash also has the Yankees winning. He has them winning in 4, actually. But the one thing I'll say about those two guys, Judge and Soto, is that Soto has had like a signature series, I feel like, in the postseason. For him, he was fantastic as a 20-year-old in 2019. He hit 3
Buck
home
would
runs.
not let you forget that he was only 19 years old.
Exactly. He hit 3 homers and went 9 for 27 in that series against the Astros and helped carry them to a ring. He wasn't great necessarily in the 2022 playoffs. He only went 3 for 16 in the NLDS, only went 4 for 18 in the NLCS. Granted, 2 of those hits were home runs. Where I'm looking at Aaron Judge, and yes, he has 13 home runs in the postseason across the 12 series he's played in, but he's only hit 211. And I mean, the Yankees got swept in the ALCS by the Astros. There were, 3 of those games were pretty close, and Judge, I feel like he was responsible for that sweep. He only went 1 for 16. He didn't get a single extra base hit during that series. Overall, that postseason, he went 5 for 36. That's not what you expect an MVP to do. So if you're Aaron Judge, I need to see him have a signature moment or a signature series. Maybe right now it's probably, the home run he hit in the wild card game in 2018, or the 3 home runs he hit in the 2017 ALCS. But he also only went 6 for 24 with 11 strikeouts that series, and they lost that series. So I need to see him really put the hammer down this time around if he wants to really cement himself as one of the legends of this franchise. And I think he's perfectly capable of doing that.
Baseball's such a weird sport when you think about it, right? That baseball is I was using this to kind of talk to a friend of mine the other day that was like, why does it feel like they never come through? To specifically talk about the Mariners, right? But this works just in general. In football, if your quarterback has a completion rating of 65%, 65, let's say 70%, just to be fun, right? Yep. That means that 7 out of every 10 times they throw the ball, it's caught, and you consider that elite, right? Like I think that's fair. In basketball, if you are shooting more than 50% here from the field, you are elite. You are doing excellent. In baseball, if you are getting a hit 3 times out of 10, you are considered elite. That is a 70% fail rate. That's what's so interesting about this game, is that if this is a game of failures, and I'm bringing this up right now mostly just because especially when talking about a guy like Judge, that's why I always feel like it's just a matter of time, because he's been so good at mitigating that failure here. And that's why it's so important to have both Soto and Judge together, because all you have to do is have one time where the two connect, and that's when you win a game.
Yeah, and it's scary because this is, I feel like, the first time Judge has had like a dominant co-star. And I understand Giancarlo Stanton is a great hitter.
Agreed.
He's a great power hitter, but he is, he's not quite been on the same level that Soto has been this year. He won that MVP with the Marlins, but with the Yankees, he's not hit 59 home runs in the season or whatever. Soto this year hit 41 homers and had around 1,000 OPS, neither of which Stanton has done yet. So having Stanton and Soto, Judge, and Stanton in the lineup, that's definitely a fearsome trio. And I will say, if all 3 of those guys are clicking, I don't know what stops the Yankees. Like I said,
if all 3 of those guys are clicking, they win the World Baseball Classic, not just a World Series.
They're definitely like I said, high ceiling with this team. I'd say they kind of remind me of like the Lakers in the NBA, where the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis, where if those two guys are rolling, nobody stops the Lakers. But if they're both hurt or they both, have bad nights, then everyone stops them. So high ceiling, low floor here. I think, if the Yankees get past the ALDS, there's a strong chance they make the World Series.
All right. I'm sorry, this is very off topic,
right.
kind of, but I have to hit you with this because this just popped in my head and it's gotten me very like, ooh, that'd be fun. What duo do you think would produce more at the major league level? Or would you rather have for 2 straight at-bats? Judge and Soto or Ohtani and Murakami? Because I'm bringing up the World Baseball Classic. Munetaka Murakami is nuts.
He's a monster, yeah. Oh, man. So, I don't even know, dude. That's... Because they're both so scary.
I think the people who are watching on YouTube for this will see, like, I had that, moment, because I just thought about, like, what it would be, and I'm like, because you're talking about Soto, Judge, and Stan. I was trying to think of a third one here from the Japanese series, but I think right now you just say Ohtani and Murakami and just be like, all right, cool, there's all the runs right there. Cool.
I will say, I think right now I'd probably lean Judge and Soto, but...
I think I would too, but it's a question.
Murakami hit the 56 home runs as a 22-year-old, but he hasn't quite done that the last 2 years, but... Like, I'm sure give him time and he will figure out a way. A, he's going to make his way to the States, and B, he's going to keep mashing when he gets to the States.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The only thing we can just hope for is that he doesn't go to the Dodgers. And put those two together, it'd be fun to watch, but it's also going to be insane.
Yeah, no, it's the thing is that it feels like they're, like, recruiting Team Japan because, like, Yamamoto's there, too.
They are. They watched the World Baseball Classic and said, "We want this team," especially considering the fact that they watched the end of it, the final at bat of that series, and they literally ended it with watching Ohtani strike out their rival across across the state.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, that's a conversation for another day. But there's an Intaro. What's his name? Hiroki Sasaki is the pitcher.
Thank you.
He's Hiroki Sasaki is probably going to come over to the States either this year or next year. And then there's Rintaro Sasaki, who is playing baseball at Stanford this year.
He is
the Japanese Prince Fielder. So
he's awesome. If you watch any of his highlights,
this dude's a beast.
This guy's solid.
Be on the lookout for him. Anyways, let's move on to the ALCS. Yep. So for me, that is the Astros and the Orioles. For you guys. For Splash, it's the Astros and the Yankees. For you, it is the Yankees and Guardians. So, Alex,
we all have 3 different ones this time. This is a new
we
one.
actually have 3 different ones. So, Alex, who do you have winning the American League pennant?
I don't like saying it, but it's the Yankees. I think the Yankees are so dang good, especially if you give them time to get hot against the Orioles. I think there's a very real chance we see the Yankees in the World Series this year. Does it mean that as a fan, do I? No. But at the same time, when you take a look at how it just matches up, right? Legitimately, all you need for the Yankees to win the World Series in this is take a lead going into the 7th inning in these games. If they have that, it's done. Because, like I've said earlier, the Guardians get scarier the deeper you get into the ball games. Their bullpen is their biggest strength. So what do? You make the bullpen a non-factor. And that's how you have to do it by scoring early, by scoring often. If you can do that, you win the game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, the Yankees, they're an incredibly talented bunch. And I want to give a shout out to Luke Weaver real quick. Weaver was definitely not on my radar. He had a few rocky seasons as a starter. He got picked up basically as a waiver wire guy. And this recently with Clay Holmes struggling, Aaron Boone made him the closer, and he's been really, really good. Yes, he only finished with 4 saves, but 101 strikeouts in 83 innings for a guy who was kind of written off by every team, it feels like. I got to give him props. And props to Aaron Boone for being willing to make that change. Clay Holmes is your 2-time All-Star closer, but he went through a rough patch, and, sometimes you have to make a change, and Weaver was the right answer. Like I said, I have the Orioles making it to the ALCS. The Astros, I just think I think the Astros have too much depth. Like I've said earlier, I look at their lineup up and down. You know, Yainer Diaz, 118 OPS plus. John Singleton, 103. Jose Altuve, 126. The lowest OPS plus, they have two guys in their starting lineup that have an OPS plus below 100 with Mauricio Dubon at 88, Jake Myers at 85. On their bench, though, Jason Hayward has looked sort of like the vintage Jason Hayward coming off the bench. Yes. So if you see more of Hayward compared to those guys, that's a dangerous lineup. 1-9. In the American League, it might be the best in the AL. And they got here. Remember, like I said, they were 7-19 at one point. After the month of April, they did not have a single losing month. And they did most of this without Kyle Tucker, who was an AL MVP candidate at the time that he got hurt. Now they have Tucker and Alvarez both going in the lineup. And yes, I understand Alvarez got a little banged up the last week of the season, but when the lights are bright, he does not shy away from them. So that's a great 1-9. I think their rotation, I trust them more. I think the Orioles have a solid rotation. I like Corbin Burns a lot. I'm curious to see what Albert Suarez can do in the postseason. I'm curious to see what Dean Kremer can do in his second postseason. But I think, the Astros have a better bullpen too. I have to go with the Astros here. I'm going with the Astros in 6 games. They are going to be making it to the World Series once again. By the way, this would be their 8th straight ALCS if they make it, which is bonkers. This is a team that routinely lost 100 games for a while. And for those wondering, Splash also has the Astros going to the World Series. He has them
surprising a grand total of 0 people.
Exactly. Although he did include his ALCS MVP is Yordan Alvarez. Who do you have winning the ALCS MVP? I know, kind of putting you on the spot here.
Judge.
Aaron Judge.
She's going to have that signature. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, go for it.
Honestly, I think the ALCS MVP is going to be Kyle Tucker. I feel like I've been banking on him to win one of these awards, and he hasn't won one yet, but I think this is going to be the year.
That's fair. All right, I have another kind of off-topic question, but at the same time, it's very much on topic as well. We've talked a lot about Yankees Astros as not just in this podcast, but in years past. How many times at this point have the two gone at it in the ALCS, or at some point? At what point do we just start saying that this is just the baseball version of Warriors Cavs?
I mean, it feels like it kind of is.
Just is. It's the exact same one you're expecting to see in ALCS, in which everyone is either rooting for one of 3 outcomes. You're either rooting for the Astros, either rooting for the Yankees, or rooting for the nuke.
Exactly.
There's nothing else.
It's interesting because for a while the Yankees and Red Sox would manage to match up in the postseason. Now it feels like the only, since 2004, the only time they've met up in the postseason was in 2018. The Astros and the Yankees met up in 2015, the wild card game, and in the ALCS in 2017, 2019, and 2022. I mean, they're not division rivals, but the Yankees-Astros is very much a rivalry.
I would very much love. Let's just trade the Astros for the Blue Jays, and we'll just do that division swap. It'll be fine. It's great, guys. Don't worry, it'll be just fine.
Just like how Mets fans have been begging for the Braves to get moved to another division. People keep saying, we can't wait for expansion so that there's an NL South and the Braves are no longer in the NL
right?
East.
Same. Can we do the AL South and just get rid of the Astros in there too?
Exactly.
Please?
I'm old enough to remember when the Astros were in the National League.
Yeah, so am I.
I will say the Braves are further west than Pittsburgh. So
that's fair.
I'm just saying, the Braves
to be
fair, in the West.
To be fair, it still hurts me the fact that the AL West contains 3 teams on the West and 2 teams in Texas, which is checks notes as south as you can get, as central as you can get.
Yeah, I remember growing up that kind of confused me. I was like, why are the Rangers in the West? And then all of a sudden the Astros moved to the AL West. And I was like, Like, what is this nonsense?
This
Then
makes
again,
no sense. Please, why are we doing this?
I mean, like Colorado isn't necessarily West, but I don't know any other team that would make sense
I mean,
there.
Colorado at least kind of makes sense. Just like Las Vegas will kind of make sense. Just not
guess.
a lot.
Yeah. So, anyways, so Splash and I have the Astros winning the pennant. Mm-hmm. Alex has the Yankees. It feels like those two are the common picks, which makes sense. Like I said, both teams.
I do have one. I got one meme pick for you here. Ready for this?
Yeah.
In the ALCS, if the Guardians win it, I'll be rooting for the Guardians of the World Series. But I will. My pick for MVP of it is going to be my homeboy Kyle Manzardo. Dude is a legend.
Manzardo's looked great actually lately.
Dude, Manzardo is a legend, and I just want to see more Cougs at the top of the sports world right now. Get Manzardo that ALCS MVP here. Let Gardner Minshew lead the Raiders to more wins. I'm okay with this. This is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched him heat up lately. He's got a lot of power. I think he's the long-term answer probably at first base for the Guardians.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. There's a reason why they traded for him from the Rays, and why I was really surprised the Rays traded him.
Yeah, I will say that trade worked out great for Cleveland because Aaron Chevalier is not even on the Rays anymore.
Exactly.
So.
Which is a weird one. Yeah. Normally, we see the Rays just absolutely fleece people in these kinds of trades. But
well, yeah, I was watching the Mets Brewers game yesterday, and the Brewers, they did a bullpen game, but their bulk guy was Tobias Myers, and it honestly got lost on me even that's the guy the Rays traded to Cleveland to get Junior Caminero.
Oh wow!
I know. In retrospect, at the time, it's like, all right, it's a minor league swap. You know, it took Myers a long time to break in the majors, and now it's like Junior Caminero is the long-term answer at third base for the Rays. He was the top prospect in baseball this year. So,
I mean, to be fair, it's like you talk about like these just minor league swaps. I wonder whatever happened to that Fernando Tatis guy that was traded for James Shields.
I know his dad hit 2 grand slams in an inning once, both off.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. But I mean, I don't think he could live up to what his dad did. It's amazing to have one major leaguer in the family, let alone 2. Shout out to the Seager family.
Yeah, I would say on that, watching Trevor McGill pitch for the Brewers.
Right, yeah.
Trevor McGill is 6'8" and throws like 100 miles per hour.
Oh my god.
And Tyler McGill is 6'7". Imagine having 2 major leaguers in your family who are both.
I feel like the pantry has to be very large.
Oh yeah,
pantry has to be very deep. They actually their pantry is just a casita.
I remember TJ Watt, or not JJ Watt, when he hosted SNL a few years ago. You know, talking people would ask his parents like, "How the heck did you raise 3 kids to all make the NFL?" Like right? It just, it's wild.
It's insane. Also, given the fact that JJ Watt and TJ Watt are like the stars, but people forget about Derek Watt, who was a fullback for a very long while. Like he's done good work.
I remember watching Derek Watt, of course.
Okay.
But anyways, make sure to let us know, who do you have winning the American League? Who do you have winning the World Series? Maybe. Like I said, we will be getting into that more tomorrow. I know this whole scheduling thing kind of, with the doubleheader tomorrow, kind of threw a wrench into our plans. Trust me.
Yeah. Letting you guys know, we were planning on doing a full playoff breakdown today, but then the weather interfered. Literal Mother Nature interfered with us trying to do a podcast.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on ways they could have done it differently, but we will have our full World Series and all that predictions up on Twitter before the games start on Tuesday. But anyways, we have reached the point that we end every show with, which is the moment to ourselves, 60 seconds, give or take a few, to talk about whatever the heck is on your mind. So, Alex, do you want to go first here?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, I'll count you down. Your timer starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
So I just want to talk a little bit about what I have seen over the last couple of days here. I got to see the last 2 games of the Oakland Athletics, and man, I feel for that franchise. I really do. I mean, I'm not gonna say I feel for the franchise. Excuse me. I feel for the players and for the fans. I'm not gonna go into like how I feel about a lot of it, but seeing these people really come out and show their support for these guys was absolutely incredible. Like the fact that their cheers were so loud, they were overpowering a lot of the Mariners chants here. And I get it, you know, Seattle doesn't have the absolute best fan base in the world for cheering and all that. But I just love that to the very last second, the fans were giving their all for these guys. They were, and it was honestly brought a tear to my eye. I was really happy for him at this point. And I just loved seeing them get to have fun. And I'll admit, when the game was over, I stood up and I applauded, and I was wearing this A's hat here. And I did just kind of like it's like a wave and a salute to them with the hat, just being like, look, we've been division rivals forever, but I could still feel for you. That's what humans can do. And it's going to be really weird seeing them play in Sacramento next year, be the Sacramento A's playing in a AAA ballpark. That's got to be a bit of a slap in the face, though, to be fair. Shout out to the Toronto Blue Jays playing in a AAA ballpark for a bit. But exactly, like, honestly, to the fans, you deserved more. To the players, you really deserved more.
And I will say credit to the players for keeping their head down during this whole process, and like, you know, Mark Kotze for keeping his clubhouse focused. I give a ton of credit to those guys. They played pretty well in the second half too. Like they, you know, you see a lot of there are reasons to be excited about the team, but it is very, very disappointing to see them leaving. And I think they all deserve a lot better. And you know, it's going to be weird. They're not going by Oakland. They're not going by Sacramento. They're going by the Athletics next year. So
yeah, which is weird. That like not having a place for it. I wonder what the jerseys are going to look like at that point. Just all.
I wonder that
now.
I don't know. I've honestly been wondering the same thing, and I'm also wondering how the heck they're going to do the scheduling thing, because supposedly the River Cats are remaining in Sacramento next year.
Yeah, so that's gonna take a lot of planning to make it work.
Yeah, my dad was telling me about the year that the Yankees and Mets had to share Shea Stadium because they were renovating Yankee Stadium, and it sounds like it's just a lot of chaos with trying to schedule, you know, your road trips to match up with another team's homestands, and it's a whole debacle.
It's a mess, yeah.
Scheduling is very, very difficult because I know some teams, you know, stadiums have to book, you know, different events, and it's like I said, very, very complicated.
I will say there was one time where it resulted in something really funny, and that was that the Marlins had a U2 concert in over at their stadium, and they were playing Seattle, but the Marlins were the home team.
I remember that. Yeah,
for that series, for that one game, excuse me. And it was amazing because it let Felix Hernandez be the first pitcher to get a hit in Safeco Field.
I remember that. That was so weird.
That was so weird. That was so weird seeing the Mariners playing in their away grays. Oh my gosh, it was funny.
I remember there was a year because obviously there was weird stuff during the pandemic where like the Mets hit a walk-off home run when they were the home team at Yankee Stadium. That Ahmed Rosario hit one off Aroldis Chapman in Yankee Stadium. It was really weird. But I remember there was a time where the Phillies and Blue Jays were playing a series, and Toronto was hosting a big conference, so they moved the series to Philadelphia, and the Jays were the home team in Philly. It was really, really awkward.
Honestly, to be fair, there's one thing I really do love about that whole style of thing, and that is giving the fans an opportunity to see their closing pitcher in the bottom of the ninth inning. Because that's something that whole fans don't get to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the hype package for that has to be amazing.
It's probably pretty crazy.
Imagine seeing Edwin Diaz coming out in the bottom half of the 9th inning, in the bottom half to win a game here in your actual stadium.
Yeah. But anyways, I'll get started. Do you mind counting me down, sir?
I got you, man. All right, here we go. Your time begins in 3, 2, 1, go.
So before I get into my main thing, I just want to shout out Joe Castiglione from the Red Sox. Called it a career, 42 years on the mic. He won the Ford C. Frick Award. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. And if you have ever listened to the song Tessie by the Dropkick Murphys, his call of the Red Sox ending the curse is the intro to it. But anyways, beyond that, the Mets and Braves, like we were saying earlier, are playing this doubleheader tomorrow. It's going to be absolute madness. I understand that Major League Baseball did not step in for scheduling purposes. And look, I get it. A storm. You can never quite predict how much damage they're going to do. I get that they wanted to get the game in, but it's kind of chaotic how tomorrow will shake out. But like I said last week, the way the Mets played this year has been admirable. They were 11 games under 500. They could have sold off at that point the way the Marlins did. They could have just given up, but they never quit. And here we are. They are playing for their postseason lives tomorrow. I don't have a ton of expectations if they make it, but I'm still looking forward to watching them if they do make it. So shout out to them. They made this summer a lot of fun. So I hope we get to see. I hope by the time we record next week, they're still playing. But if not, it's been a great season. So looking forward to it, and we'll see what the offseason has in store. But shout out to them for providing some quality entertainment this year.
Completely understand that. And to be fair, I was thinking about this earlier, that the playoff scenario with the tomorrow's doubleheader, if one team wins both of them, then that team is in the playoffs done. And the Diamondbacks are in.
Yeah.
But if they split, then they're both in. I think at that point, like, the second game becomes almost more important, right? Because at that point, with how bitter rivals these two teams are,
exactly, yeah.
Like, and while it would be funny just to watch them both like split, like handshake and split to make the postseason, that the other team just wants to completely not be responsible for knocking the other out of the playoffs.
That's the thing in the back of my mind, is that, like, so the Mets are going with Tyler McGill in game 1, the Braves are going with Spencer Schwellenbach, and it's like game 2. Obviously, you don't want to burn Chris Sale or Luis Severino. You don't want to burn either of those guys before the playoffs. But at the same time, it's like, how crazy would it be if you play your B team and accidentally knock out your arch rival? It'd be bonkers.
That would be incredible.
That's the whole thing, though, is that both teams aren't going with their ace necessarily, or their preferred starter in game 1. Because, say they win, then you hold on to the other guy for the playoffs. Or, maybe you don't win, then you get to start your big gun in the second game, which I completely
understand.
Whoever
wins game 1, like, locks in a playoff spot. But now you're playing to mess with your opponent.
Yeah, it reminds me of the year that the Chargers and Raiders could have just kneeled out and both made the playoffs, but the Raiders decided to keep playing and knock the Chargers out. My team benefited in the fact that we got to get destroyed by the Chiefs the next week. So,
congratulations, a fate pursuit.
Exactly. But anyways, that does it for us today. Make sure to follow all of us on Twitter. Follow me at Mathias_A_K. Follow Alex at the Sports Guy 242, and follow Splash at Mr. Splashman19. And make sure to follow our LAR account at LAR_baseball. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to us. Maybe you're subscribing to us on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit that like button. Like I said, we're going to have plenty of content coming at you this postseason. You'll probably get more predictions. Maybe we're right. Maybe we're wrong. But anyways, thank you all for listening. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all real soon. Thank you.